Hey everybody, welcome to the NEPA Scene Podcast, the only live streaming face-to-face arts and entertainment podcast covering northeastern Pennsylvania, offering a true alternative voice in local media. We're coming to you from the NEPA Scene studio underneath Center City Print in downtown Scranton. I'm Rich Howells, the founder and editor of NEPA Scene, and tonight we're here with Pennsylvania hardcore legend Strength for a Reason. They will be headlining the Hardcore for Husvar show coming up on Sunday, May 25th, with Burial Ground, Option, Side Over, Fool's Game, Soughwutt, and Cheated. So we're going to be talking about this massive reunion of old school hardcore bands in memory of Neil Husvar. Strength for a Reason's nearly 30-year career that started in Nanticoke back in 1997. The hardcore scene then and now, how the sound of hardcore music has changed and developed over time. And many playing packed festivals and lineups to this day, and much, much more. So please join our conversation with your questions and comments down below. We'll get to those later on in the show. Before I dive in, I just want to thank our sponsor, Center City Print, who provide us with this great studio space. You can use promo code NEPA Scene in person or online at centercityprint.com for 10% off. Center City Print can bring your ideas to life in 4 locations: Scranton, Old Forge, Kingston, and Hazleton. These one-stop shops are locally owned and operated, offering high-quality printed products, copy and print services, and design solutions to help you, your small business, your nonprofit organization, your band, your art project, your event, or any venture thrive. Use promo code NEPA Scene in person or online at centercityprint.com for 10% off. All right, so let's start by introducing yourselves and your position in the band.
I'm Tom Schuster, a bass player, Strength for a Reason.
Jack Sergey, guitar.
Carl Kivler, vocals.
And how did you first discover hardcore music?
For me, it was probably the year 1990, and we started listening to some bands, but there was actually live shows at a place, LS Bolorama in Nanticoke, PA, and there was like first bands I think that came through was like the Undead, more like punk rock, Mucky Pup. Remember them?
Oh,
they were fun.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
And then we got lucky enough to then finally through there we found out about the Hose House in Edwardsville.
Columbia Hose House, yeah.
Columbia Hose House, actually, and then we started going up there, and we actually saw bands like New School, like I said, and then you found like Sick of It All, and we were already listening to them at that time, but to actually see that there was a scene even local. And then you would start seeing like local bands, like you started seeing your Option and Side Over, and then we pretty much just grew from there. And then we were always show goers at that point. If you asked me back then, I never thought we would have a band until that's when we started really going to CC's. Was pretty much our home away from home. Manus Green and Wilkes-Barre, Metropolis, Cafe Metropolis, yeah. And then it was so much more widespread than you ever thought it would be. And at that time, it was almost like there was so many bands that you didn't even realize were in your backyard.
Yeah.
But then they were bringing bands already. Then there was the Factory. Remember the Factory?
Wilkes-Barre.
And so many bands would come through, and then it was. That's what you went to the show to find out when the next show was. So it was like exciting. And you were like a young kid at the time, you know. You'd have your mom drop you off in the parking lot, you know, and we'd be like, we'd be begging, would you please take us to us at the time coming from Nanticoke. It was a 20-minute ride, but to go to music, to go to CC's, you're like, will you drop us off? And, you know, and they're like, what are you going all the way up there for, you know?
Yeah.
I came from the other direction, so I'm in Scranton meeting kids that I knew from music, and again, mom dropping me off in the parking lot at CC's.
Okay.
Yeah, I was back in 91. I think the Monkey Pup show might have been your first show, like, or around that area, but it was like my first show was at LS. It was Vision. And
Vision was a good one.
I think it was the next show. Like, you guys went there, and you're like, hey, man.
Yeah, you got to check this out.
You got to check this out. And I'm like, I don't know, you know. And then I ended up going, and it was a Vision show, and I think Option was on that show, so it was like my first show, you know. So like Vision and Option, and I think Side Over and Soughwutt, and there was other bands on there that were actually playing the show that were on Saturday. So.
And at the time, it was like we were all like riding skateboards, and we're just like learning, like, you know, finding youth of today, and you know what I mean. And then to actually see them come to the place,
right?
It was like, oh my God, this is crazy! Like they're coming to our towns, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
My first show ended up, it was at underground show was at Cece's. It was Digger and Weston, but Burial Ground was a band. Like it's crazy to be playing with them because they were a band that I remember going to see.
Yeah, I remember CC's being one of the main ones that really everybody kind of sent.
Yep.
Yeah. CC's was our home away from home. We ended up having our band room there.
Mm-hmm.
We actually, when we started getting a little more popular, we actually would play like once a month to pay for our band room. Because we just had a lot of friends. At the time, we always made the joke, we weren't even that good yet, believe me. We were just like, we had a lot of friends and we met a lot of friends. So when we would play, a lot of people would come out. So we liked that, you know what I mean? So it was a little bit of a following. But for us, it was just, that's where you went to see your friends.
Yeah.
And then you started meeting people from other places, you know what I mean? I don't want to get ahead of where we're going, but you started meeting people from other places, and that's when you started actually thinking about bands.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, what is it about that music that spoke to you personally? What was it that drew you in, that made you want to keep going to these shows?
I don't know. For me, I mean, it's just, you know, number one, I mean, you're meeting all your friends there. It's like every week. Like, it would be an every week thing. You know, you'd show up, and it wasn't like, you know, kind of, we didn't have the social media. We didn't have the, I can just talk to my friend right now. You know, like,
right.
Like Rusty said,
There's no phones.
No, you pull in that parking lot, and there'd be 40 kids in the parking lot, and they know you, they know your car, and it was just like, yeah, you know, it was great. And then plus, like Carl said, you know, there's bands that you listen to, and you know, it's not like going to a big show where maybe, you know, you like Metallica and you're seeing Metallica from way across the stadium.
Right.
You know, like there's a band here that I really like, and I can go see the show, and he's as close to me as you are. And I could sing, and he's giving me the mic, and I know the words, and you feel like you're part of the experience at every show. So that's really, you know, the fun part that kind of stuck out to me. Like, I'm actually part of the show, and I'm in with the band, and I could talk to the singer after the show right here. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he's talking to me one-on-one like he knows me, you know, and it was just that cool camaraderie that with friends and the bands that roll through, which was really cool.
And they're the ones selling you the t-shirt. They're the ones giving you the music.
Right.
They're the ones speaking to you. And the music always talked to me because it was different. Like in school, like maybe you were an outcast or you didn't get, you know, you weren't into Cool Click or whatever. But when you went there, none of that mattered. Like there were people that liked you, like maybe they liked metal, punk rock. But it was always, hardcore was always about maybe not even intentional, but being a little bit different. Like when we were younger, it wasn't cool to ride a skateboard. People like kind of talk negative about, all the skaters or this, or like it wasn't as, like you said, with the internet, it opened everything wide open for everything. But back then, that was almost like you were an outcast if you were a skateboarder, or you were an outcast if you liked metal music or punk rock music, or you didn't like what was on the radio. You know what I mean? To just know that you could go places and find that, and some guy would give you a tape for free. And you'd be like, oh my God, like, this guy gave me a tape for free. He must, you know, not realizing he was promoting his music, but it was actually a great thing because then you would go home and you'd read all the lyrics, or you would read the other bands that were thanked in there. And that's where you learned about the new bands. And it was just like you felt like you were always welcomed and connected.
And that's all encompassing there. That was the social media. I mean, you're hearing about the next show. You're part of what's going on. You're seeing the bands that you like. I remember being at CC's and seeing Keith Caputo, and he was in the back from Life of Agony, and meeting him. And I felt like that was one of the first times I met a celebrity because he's a celebrity to me. I was like, man, and he's shorter than me.
But it was, and it was like you would see Biohazard, Evan from and I've seen him on MTV. Like you would see these people on MTV, and they were playing a place that was like 15 minutes down the road. Right. And that guy was just on MTV. Now he's in here, and it feels like we're the only, us 150, 200 people are the only ones that know about it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was like because they were more big city bands at the time, you know, but it was just people were around here were just learning, you know.
Yeah, and you can be upfront, like I said, you can be upfront and personal with them too. And it's funny because you meet some of these bands, like you mentioned, Keith from Life Agony and stuff, and they still talk about CC's, and they still, at shows, you might hear, oh, the craziest place, who's here from CC's, who remember CC's? Like, they'll play down in our friend's band, friend's place, Reverb, in Reading, and they'll play, and, you know, they would say that, like, hey, who remembers Scranton and CC's, you know, and they still talk about those experiences and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. So.
Yeah, we just played with them, well, I feel like we just played with them, but it's like 3 years now, maybe.
Yeah.
We played with them in Clearfield, and still the same guy that he was.
Yeah.
It's amazing to still
he is.
remember that after being all over the place.
Yeah.
But that's what we're saying. Like when you came from that time frame, everybody was almost became real friends because it wasn't an internet relationship. It was like you talked to them in person. They remembered you, and they knew the next time you came through, you were going to be there.
Right.
And this was before like we were in bands. But then once you started a band, they would put you on a show, or they would tell you, well, here, come play our area. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everybody seemed like it was very open and connected. Everybody really cared. Like, being a brand new band, everyone kind of looked out for one another. That's what I always learned about hardcore. It was like, bring the younger bands with you because they supported you to get where you're at. You know what I mean?
Right.
As Life Agony would say, don't remember where you come from. You know what I mean?
And this is skipping ahead, but looking at whenever we were in Europe, 2017, 2015, Scranton Wilkes-Barre, we'd be at shows in Europe, and Scranton Wilkes-Barre is getting a shout out because of Strength for Reason, because of Cold World, Title Fight, who else is?
Yeah.
I mean, we played big festivals in Europe, and you're here in Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Across the microphone.
Yeah, you're like, the
That's a proud feeling right there.
And like you feel like you were part of that movement where they'll be like, you know, I say 570 in our song, and they'll be like, yeah, 570, Nanticoke, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, and you're in a different country where
You got Belgian kids yelling.
Belgian kids, 570, you know what I mean, like you know, and you're like, well, it's a little town, you know what I mean, a little city, whatever, and you're like, it's so cool for them to be like, wow, you know, you put the 570 on the map, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that Red Barons logo.
Right?
Traveled the world.
Yeah, you still see that being used on all the hardcore flyers now and stuff like that. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And we always represented Nanticoke, and I always say Wilkes-Barre, Scranton now, mostly because the band is more mixed. Sure. At the time when we first started, it was pretty much 4 out of the 5 guys were from Nanticoke. So I always said Nanticoke, you know, but it always was the 570 scene, which was Nanticoke, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, of course, you know what I mean? Pittston, it's all the same. Sure. You're going to count and say Pittston, Edwardsville, you know what I mean? Yeah. Kingston, you know.
Yeah, I mean, NEPA itself has been known to stretch pretty far in some cases. Be like, exactly. It includes Williamsport or includes Stroudsburg, and it's like, I guess it's pushing it a little bit when you're driving, 2 hours maybe. But we'll put it all in there, sure.
Exactly. But you were proud of it. You were proud to be from NEPA,
right? And
there were so many bands that were doing it and representing the area that you were like, Northeast Pennsylvania,
Yeah, but and our photographer Jason brings it up all the time. Like, people didn't start saying NEPA for a long time. Like, he left the area when he came back. He's like, why is everybody saying NEPA? Why? Yeah. What is this?
Yeah.
That was not a thing before. Yeah. All of a sudden, it's a thing. Like, that wasn't a thing in those days. I think it was more Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, that sort of stuff. Yeah. When you guys ended up forming Strength for Reason, like 1996, maybe 97, around that area. Mm-hmm. The kind of start. It was like kind of a side project sort of thing.
Actually, we met him at CC's. Was a band called Mushmouth. And I became pretty good friends with the guys and stuff. And
I remember those.
I never thought I would ever sing in a band, And we were talking to him one day, and he's like, He's like, we're thinking about doing some kind of side project. And he's like, would you want to sing for it? I'm like, me? Are you like, me of all people? Like, I never, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember, it's my wife now, but I remember going home to my, telling my, she's my girlfriend at the time. I'm like, I think I'm going to sing in a band. And she's like, really, you're gonna sing in a band? I'm like, yeah, James, I think I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then, but that was like 1996, and I remember sitting down and writing 2 lyrics to 2 songs and driving down to Reading and singing for them, and then we did actually with Earth Crisis. We jumped on after Mushmouth on the Earth Crisis show, and I sang the 2 songs, and I was hooked. I was like,
Nice.
you know, that was fun. You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, you did great, man, you know. And then we went on and we played a couple shows, like, as a side project, you know. But I'm like, I thought to myself, I'm like, I'd like to do this for real, you know what I mean? And then Jack used to fool around with the guitar already, and our friend Chris, his brother Dominic, fooled around with the bass, and I'm like, well, maybe we'll get something together, you know what I mean? And we'll see if we can run it, you know, but with just us. So, and that's pretty much how it started. But I always say 1997 is when we got like a solid lineup, you know.
How old were you guys at the time?
Oh man, I was 19.
Yeah, so 97, I was probably 19, 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, was there a scene in Nanticoke at the time? Was there anything going on there music-wise, or did you kind of have to go more to Scranton Wilkes-Barre?
We would have people throw shows at a place called Westside Park.
Yeah,
And it was a little building. And when we ended up, as we started really going, we brought a lot of bands through there. I mean, we actually had bands there as recent as 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I mean, people still talk about that too. Oh, Westside Park, you know, it was like sort of an outside show, but it was inside at the same time, you know.
Yeah.
It was like right in the middle of a neighborhood. I always think to myself, sometimes there'd be 400 people there. Like, what are these people thinking? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's people from New Jersey, New York. I mean, everybody's driving this little building in the middle of Nanticoke. You know what I mean? But it always worked. You know, it always seemed the people that they'd always let us do it. You know, they always say, as long as nobody gets hurt. You know how that goes.
Right.
But but that's the way, like I said. But some of our first shows were at CC's, and then, like I said, we started doing like Cafe Metropolis. The original Cafe Metropolis, right?
Yeah, the original one was in the Sterling at that point. So it used to be in the Sterling, and we played like 1 or 2 shows there, and then they moved over to Main Street, kind of where I think Loyalty is now, Loyalty Barbershop.
Yeah,
it was in there, and then from there it closed after that, but that was its last location. But it started there. And Manus Green was across the street.
Yeah, Manus Green actually met a before Cafe.
It was.
Yeah. But Cafe Metropolis at one time, I mean, that was the first time like there were sold out shows that we played there, and it was a small place, but it was like so cool. Like, you know, these shows are sold out. You know what I mean?
Packed, yeah.
But they would bring in so many bands at the time. Like I said, it was there and CC's would just. It was like no matter what, on the weekend there was a show, which was so awesome. You know what I mean? For such a smaller scene that started really growing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Was there a reason why Strength for a Reason couldn't play Cafe Metropolis?
No, we played Cafe Metropolis there.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
And the staircase too.
Oh yeah, the staircase.
For a little bit.
Well, that's a whole another story.
Yeah. Let's go into maybe some. So speaking of venues, a thing that keeps any music scene going is a lot of the DIY venues that people come up with, like the Westside Park, that sort of thing. What are maybe some of the most interesting or strangest places you guys have ever had to play?
Yeah, well, I could write a book. Where do we go the one time where we played in the middle of the baseball field in the dugout?
Yeah, that was up by Sayre, Pennsylvania. It was up there around that area, up by Mansfield, middle of Pennsylvania, up the top of the New York border.
Okay.
And they asked us to play a show, and we would play shows up there at a place called Hurricane Billiards.
And the shows were always really
Shows were good. It was a small like pool hall that had a stage in the back, and they decided to do some
nice
shows.
Sound system, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we went up there for our first show. Played with some like non-hardcore bands, but like we were on it. Okay, we'll play the show, and it worked out because like kids saw us and they liked the music, and before you know, the guys putting on hardcore shows. So Hatebreed played there. We played there with them. So like the shows built up, and then we got asked, hey, you want to play this benefit show for whatever it was? And we're like, okay, and it's here, and like, okay. So we drove up and coming through the woods, and we're coming up, and we start coming down the hill. Like, wait a minute, and we see a bolt, like the cage bullpen down at the end, and it's like a baseball field, and there's some kids swinging on the bullpen. And we're coming down the hill, and there's like 3 kids there, and we see them jumping in the field because it's like from here to 100 feet away, and we're coming down the hill. It's like, oh man, when we get down there, they had a generator, and the power in the amps were like, and we played on home plate to like kids out in the field, but it was great. It was fun. A lot of people showed up, and it was like an outdoor show, like in this baseball diamond, and
it
was pretty neat.
It was so funny because there was a bunch of bikers, and they kind of like stayed in the distance a little bit.
Yeah.
But then they had like a couple trucks, and when we'd finish a song, you'd hear them go, "Yeah!" and rev their bikes up and beep the horn. And we're like, I'm like, what's going on here? But,
Yeah.
But at the same time, we like to this day we'll always remember it because it was such a crazy experience. But we'd finish the song, and you'd hear a guy start his bike up and rev his bike, and the guy blowing the horn. We're like, oh man, this is nuts.
Yeah.
But we're literally playing at home plate, like, and it was like a real big baseball field too, so it was like you felt like you were playing like to nobody, sort of, even though there was a lot of people there. You know what I mean? It was like that was definitely a fun experience.
Yeah.
There was one I talked about the other day, like in the last couple of days when we played at that Hudson Duster.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
And the stage was up in the ceiling, and when the band switched out gear, they'd put scaffolding out, and you'd carry the gear up the scaffolding. The band played up on top, and Carl was on the floor singing, so he was ready.
Yeah.
This is nowhere to lie. They were, and I'm saying this in all honesty, they were 40 feet in the air playing, and I was on the ground with the people by myself.
Yeah. So all we saw was the mic cord running down, and we're like, I guess it's okay. We're just playing, and like you couldn't see
It was
nothing.
like playing in your like the loft of a garage. They're up there, and I'm like down there by myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was like I felt like I was doing karaoke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The band was really playing, but I'm down there with a microphone with no band.
The show was good. The show
was packed.
Yeah, the show was good.
It was funny, but I mean it was one of the most odd times.
Yeah, that was an odd show.
That was odd. Like
yeah.
you're like, where's the band? They're up there.
Yeah, that was up in where?
Troy, New York.
Was it Troy?
Troy,
I think
yeah.
we drove home in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
I think there was
Yeah, it was a real bad
We went in, it was fine. We came out, and there was like 3 feet of snow on the ground, and trying to get out of there.
Oh yeah.
Fishtailing up the.
And that was the van days. At one time we had a bus.
Yeah.
Remember when we had the bus too?
Yeah.
That was. Everybody knew we were coming because we had this little mini bus, and we painted it black with gold rims, and we painted like SFAR on the front, and everybody's like, it was like that's what you were known for, because not everybody at that time had a little mini bus that was like a hardcore band was coming through.
Yeah.
We played that. It was called the Ottinger Villa in, I don't know what city.
Oh
it was.
yeah, Germany, right?
It was in Germany, and it was a mansion. I think it was
that was
a
cool.
beer brewing. It was a Ottinger beer. They had a mansion that turned into
Like a community center.
some kind of community center. It had an internet cafe. We slept upstairs in bedrooms and things upstairs, but it had a fireplace that was like 12 foot high.
Wow.
Yeah.
Had a big staircase.
Gargoyles out when you're coming in.
Gargoyles. Oh,
yeah,
it was crazy.
dragon
Not every
gargoyle
time
staircase.
you could say you played a mansion.
I mean, you walked
Right.
in the door, and it was like one of those things you would see in this movie, like the big wooden staircase that went up and around, and a big chandelier hanging. You're like, what is this? And there's just kids hanging out, and it was crazy. And you're like, what is this place? And it's a community center. Like, whoa, you know?
We played in like the basement. There was a sub basement to the basement.
Yeah.
But we played in the basement. The basement was all stone. It was a full club.
Yeah.
In the basement, but walking in, it was a mansion.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Bomb shelter. We played a bomb shelter.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we did play a bomb.
Literal bomb
in
shelter.
Aachen, Germany.
Yeah, in
so
Germany.
World War II. They turned a storm shelter or a bomb shelter into a club.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
Boats.
crazy. Yeah,
on some boats.
Boats. Yeah,
Yeah, we actually played a couple boats.
right on. That was in Paris, like right on the
On the Seine.
Seine River that goes down. They have these little boats that are parked, and they had shows in there. We're like, where are we going? And we pull over and like in the boat. And you're like, what? You go to the boat, you go down the steps, and you're in, and it's a
It's a
venue.
club. Yeah.
In a boat. Like this is crazy. They have a bar on the side and a stage, and maybe about 100 some kids could probably fit in there, maybe a little bit more.
It was a
But,
regular
yeah, it was
full-fledged club inside a boat. We
Yeah.
played in Liège, Belgium. It was on a boat as well.
yeah. Interesting places.
Captain
In-
Cave.
Yeah. And like in Maine, Portland, Maine, played a cave. It's a place it's in the middle of nowhere, and people from all over come, and she pretty much set her garage up. It's like a big, like,
It's a barn. It looks like
a barn. Yeah, I should say not a barn, and she set it up to be a music venue.
Yeah.
And it was, but she made a little pizza shop in there. I mean, we always call her the mother of hardcore,
Yeah.
because she made it like it was like a family event. But she did it just for the kids around there. You know what I mean? It
And
was.
it's sort of like
We say kids, but people, almost like a CC's, and
it's a well-known spot. Like
it's a well-known spot. Yeah,
all the major like hardcore bands, big bands, they've gone through her yard, her garage that she has in the back, and everyone knows that spot.
Agnostic Front, Blood for Blood. I mean, you name them. I mean, everybody play. You ask them, "Oh, did you ever play the Cave?" Oh yeah, definitely. And you would never think of that. You would just play some barn in the middle of.
Bucksport.
Yeah, Bucksport, Maine. Yeah, is that where it is? Bucksport.
Yeah.
But on the outside, it looks like a barn. When you walk in, it looks like
a music venue.
And you pull in, you're like, where do we go here? And this nice lady comes walking out of her house, and hey, and like, okay, and come on in here, and she has food ready for you. You're like, wow, this is great.
Lobster? Lobster.
Oh yeah.
Maine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like she hold on, we're getting a fisherman, and then like come on out, and we're like looking at it, and there's like literally like a plate of lobsters like this, and she's like, here you go, and we're like, oh my god.
We made it.
For like nothing.
We made it. We got lobster.
Right?
Yeah, because they get them right off the boat, so it's cheap.
Her sound man is a lobster fisherman.
Oh, yeah.
By
Yeah.
trade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we brought a pile of lobsters, like, and I never got to a point like me and you were talking, like, where I ever think I don't want any more of these. I can't eat any more. You're like, you're looking and there's still a bunch of lobsters, and you're just like, no more. It's crazy. So those are memorable places that we play. Yeah.
Well, we played in Las Vegas, and we played a junkyard.
Yeah.
That was a crazy thing.
Yeah.
And it's probably like 140 degrees, it felt like, anyway. And all he had was like a swamp cooler in the junkyard. And it's like room.
The smell probably was great. Right?
Yeah.
But it was it's memorable. Like
We could go on and on.
we could go on and on, like, through all the years. Like, you'll never forget that. Your friends travel the world and see you played these crazy places.
Yeah.
You bringing it up is like reliving it.
Yeah.
We could keep talking your ear off about it, because I'm sure if we sit here, we could probably think of 20 other places.
Yeah.
We played Denmark, and the only thing I remember was we slept on the basketball court floor.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the show. I remember like 20 bands all just, here's the sleeping bags on the
Yeah,
basketball
that was after
court.
the show.
Yeah.
That was after the show, and they're like, "Oh, where are we going to sleep?" And they're like, "Oh, down here." And we followed this guy in his car, and we drove down, and it was just, again, like a community center or something. And it was like here, and it was like we're like sitting down in the middle of all these other people we don't even know from wherever they're sleeping, and we're like,
There was
"Okay,
probably
here's some
big bands
spaces."
on it, though. There were some big
Yeah.
bands in the
Yeah.
area.
Here we are at the basketball court with a couple sleeping bags.
Back or somebody.
Yeah.
And they tease me to this day because I used to have this fan. I can't sleep without a fan to this day. And I had a fan with batteries, and we're sleeping in there. All you can hear me clicking the fan open.
It was so loud. Everybody's trying to sleep. Click, 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 click. It's like, that was before the days of the fan sound on your phone. You actually had a physical fan. Yeah,
I took it everywhere with me.
Yeah, that's great.
We'll let you ask some questions before we ruin the interview.
Well, it puts everybody on the same level, no matter how big or small band you are. You're all on that level.
Yeah, we're all in the same basketball court, sleeping on the same floor.
Right.
I'm trying to think of who was on that show. I have the posters hanging in my garage.
Yeah.
So I was just watching the Pennsylvania hardcore documentary to kind of get in the mindset for the interview. And one of the points that came up a lot about hardcore from here versus other scenes is the diversity of sounds of all the bands, and how many from Pennsylvania didn't sound like each other, but they all kind of got along. You know, was that your experience, that you saw all kinds of different sounds and everybody just kind of accepted that it wasn't like how it is now? I feel like a lot of people like to separate everything by genre, like these little tiny subgenres that are really the names they come up with are hysterical. Just call it metal, just call it hardcore. You don't have to get in these specific things. But
that's definitely the way I felt, because when we grew up, it was very mixed shows. Like I said, you had a band like New School that had like more of a rap in it, and then you would get like more of a posse band, a youth crew band, and then there would be like a straight up metal band or a punk band, and everybody, that was just a hardcore scene. Everybody was on the same show. Everybody got along.
Yeah.
Everybody would watch all the bands. But like, I think that like internet was definitely a thing that started separating everything, because it's such a wide variety, and they could click on anything and get whatever music they want.
Sure.
Where we actually learned as we were going, because you would see other bands. And sometimes the bands that we became the best friends with weren't always straight up hardcore bands. They were just good people that were in a metal band or whatever, even though you took more towards the hardcore side of it. But friends to this day,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Vince, he ran CC's. He would regularly come up to you, hey man, what do you think of this band? And like, oh, they're good. You're good. So the next thing you know, they're on a show, and he has a bunch of other. He may have another hardcore band on a show, but then there's a punk band. But then there's this. So he mixed up the show where, oh, I want to see this band, and you would come out and you would get exposed to other types of music that were on. Yeah, it might be a ska band.
There would
on
be a
the
lot of
show.
ska bands, Mighty Boss Tones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there would be bands that you would never think would be on a show now like that.
Yeah.
But back then it was totally accepted. And I think it would be accepted now too, and don't get me wrong, but I just think that, like you said, they'll try to make a lot of bands on a show sound more like each other.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Those CC shows, weren't they? They were punk hardcore ska.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot
And
of
I wish I didn't appreciate that when I was younger. Because the last time I saw a ska band, I don't even know when the last time I saw a ska band was.
Right.
And I appreciate that more now that I'm older, where at the time I didn't.
But that's the one thing that when you brought up the staircase, I almost forgot about the staircase, because that was like another place that we would go before, like when it was more the LS era, would be the staircase before even CC's. You know what I mean? Like that's when I was still learning. You knew what hardcore was, but you didn't know what it was at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure.
You knew that it was a different music that you enjoyed, but it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't categorized as just hardcore.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just the hardcore scene or punk rock scene, we call
Going
it.
to a show.
Yeah, we're going to a show. That's
Going to a show.
That's the perfect way to say it.
Whoever's
We're
gonna
going to
be-
a show.
Yeah.
Sometimes you would go to a show and you wouldn't even be at it. Like, you'd be like, I don't even know if I like any of these bands. But
Right.
then you would go to another show and you would learn 3 bands that you loved.
Yeah.
Because it was, like I said, when you went there, you didn't know what you were getting at first.
Yeah. Well, there's so much too that I think people don't think that they're going to like something until they actually see it live in person,
Yeah.
and then you gain a completely different appreciation for
Yes.
it. You know,
Oh my
it's not the same as listening to a recording a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the things too is like now you have your phone, you have that one song from the band you have on your phone. You're not back then you listen to the whole just album straight through, back and forth, where you'd go to a
Right.
show and you'd have a great time with the band because you knew every song and every lyric and you felt involved the whole time. Not like I have that one song, so all right, they played it, I'm going outside.
Right.
Like no, it's like you were in the band show the whole time. So that's what I liked. I mean, I still do that. I listen to the whole albums through, and it's just how I came up. But feeling engaged like that was great back then.
I always said you'd put your tape at the tape or your CD in at the time, and you would even forget it was in your car. You would just listen to it all the time, not even knowing it.
Right.
But then when you would see that band, you were like, I know every song, every lyric, because you probably subconsciously listened to it
absorbed,
85 times on your way to work or school, wherever you were going at the time. Like you're like, man, I really know this band. But like he said, now you'll play certain songs. I can tell you what songs are going to be the hits before you even play them. With the newer crowd, I'm saying.
Yep.
Because that's the song that they're listening to. They get to pick or choose. Where we were almost like, you're going to listen to the whole album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I, like I said, I think that it would be better if we did that now. Because some of our favorite songs are songs that we don't even play live sometimes because we don't call them the bangers or the ones that everybody knows,
Right,
the forgotten songs,
Yeah.
The greatest hits. So to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
The other thing that frequently came up in the documentary was that so many bands from here went unappreciated or didn't really receive the national attention that they should have had. Do you agree with that in terms of Pennsylvania bands?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, I think so. I mean, there are some bands that I call them overachievers, and there were some bands that you were like, well, they're one of the best bands. They just never got we call it their flowers or whatever, their appreciation.
Right.
But I mean, it was made to be more underground, so some bands didn't really care either. You know what I mean?
They weren't built to last, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing about a show like this coming up is that people get to see a bit of an era that really hasn't existed in a long time.
Yeah.
You know, some of these bands haven't been together for, you know, in some cases decades. So it's crazy to think like.
I'm truly happy to see like Option, and I mean I wish Jamie was alive for Barrel Ground, of course, but to see the original members play Barrel Ground songs is going to be awesome. Because when that Barrel Ground was a short-lived band kinda, but they were a little bit more towards the metal side before metal was big in hardcore, but they did it very well, and they you know, anybody who knew them really appreciated it because they were so like heavy at everybody knew like.
Right.
They were really, like I said, I thought if they were around now, I think they would have really caught on even more. You know.
So you guys have 4 albums plus a few singles and EPs and things. What do you, looking back now, consider your best work, or you know, personally to you?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, like, you know, the first album for any band is really, you know, the standout kind of album. That was the Show and Prove album. So, you know, we came out. That was the first full length album. We did a couple like, you know, 4-song things here for like a band, things like. But that was like the first full length album. So, yeah, I mean, I think that for me is, you know, the standout album. Just, you know, I like the recording. I like the songs. You know, it was just, you know, a
it kind of put us on the map, I guess. Like that's the album that everybody to this day still wants to hear a lot of songs off of. I would probably say 50% of our set list is still that album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is crazy, knowing that we wrote it in pretty much 2000.
Yeah.
Came out in 2001.
I mean, we were kids practically.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah, that and you know, the songs off Burden of Hope were good. So that was, you know, we play a lot of songs off of that one. I think that's the 3rd album.
Yeah,
so
I like Burden of Hope. I like the lyrics. Like I think at the time, like Blood, Faith, Loyalty, and Burden of Hope. Blood, Faith, Loyalty. I think if it was recorded a little better, I'd like it because it was like at the time it wasn't. But the songs on it meant a lot to me. I had a lot of like loss of my family at the time, and I'm more heartfelt lyrics. But I think it connected to people too. Like, you know, I have people that to this day still say, "Oh, that helped me through some rough times."
Yeah.
But it helped me through a lot of rough times. So I mean, just to have people come up to say that, like it really, like I have to the, you know, people that I have 2 letters I always keep that say they, you know, I really saved my life. And for somebody to say that, I could save one person's life. I mean, especially for, you know. I think I did my job, I guess. I mean, I think you know, it's because at the time it really helped me. These guys helped me, and the music's what really kept me going through the worst times. And for somebody else to feel that why we play is like, wow, that's pretty cool, you know.
I think you touched on it a little bit before about the live experience, and Carl just touched on it when maybe say the quality of the recording. To see that song live is one thing, and hear it recorded is another. So I mean, those are good songs, but to see them and experience them in person is a little bit different than maybe the album.
Yeah, we play a couple songs on Blood Faith, and people they're like Face to Face is a lot of people's favorite song. You know what I mean? But we weren't totally happy with the recording, and it's not that it's bad; it's just low. It was like quiet compared to, like, you know, now everybody's all about like quality recording and stuff. But back then, demos were a hit. Like people still say, "Oh, that's our favorite." Doesn't matter. Sounds like a demo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But everything went digital. You had the analog recordings, and then we switched over to digital, and that's in that time frame, when things switched over to digital. And when he's talking about the volume on that CD, you'd hear it in the studio, but you had to make sure those volumes were up. So when that CD hit the car, or that CD hit the boombox, the level was up on that CD.
I think of a band, you worry about it more. Other people just like, I turn it up. That's what volume's for. But for us, you're like, well, the other recording was better. You know, you think about it more. But you know, to me, it was always about the lyrics and the music. It wasn't about the recording anyway. My favorite bands, I didn't care about the recording. I never said, "Oh, that's an awesome recording." I always said, "That's an awesome song." or that's an awesome band. You know what I mean?
Right.
But when you're in the band, you worry about the recording.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I'm sure too. It probably gives you a different appreciation for songs when people are reacting to them, or somebody comes up to you and says like, "That's my favorite song," and you're thinking like, "I don't know. I don't think that's one of our best at all." But to them, it means something so much that it could maybe even change your perspective on it.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even just the aspect of playing, being on the other side of the mic, on the other side of when I spoke before about being at the show and me being able to sing with the singer,
right? And
feel like now I'm actually in the band on the other side, and you're playing, you're like, wow, like these people know our words, and they're singing along. I mean, even in any band, you're writing a new song and you're playing it, and you're like, wow, like people like this stuff, so it always feels good. You're playing in a band, the songs you're writing, people are responding to them, learning the lyrics, dancing, singing, so. But yeah, you're right. You mentioned some songs that you might not think like, I don't know about that one, but then you hear like, no, it's my favorite song. It helped me, things like that. So, we try to incorporate those. Some of ours, the songs we don't play a lot, we try to incorporate them back in every once in a while, just to, get them out there.
Or if people are asking for it, we'll try to get it played for you the next show. Especially if it's regulars that come to all the shows.
Yeah.
Like, what about this song? I haven't heard that in forever. And then we'll work on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a compliment to us towards just going out and that people still care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I always say, even in hardcore now, for like, there's a lot of younger kids. For people still to care about our band, being around that long, everybody thinks that you're supposed to like, they're from this far, pay their respect. I think it's more of a respect that people still care, that still come out to shows, but they know we're the same people as we were back then.
Right.
Even though we're older men now, to me, I feel like my brain is still that 20-year-old kid that wrote the lyrics.
Yeah.
It's a little harder for me to get up there and sing them sometimes, and jump around the whole time. But I really do enjoy playing live. Is my favorite thing. Everybody always said we're a very good live band. It's like because we enjoy playing live. I think that shows. I think some people go through the motions. I think you could have the worst day and you could go out and play a show and I still enjoy it like I was 19 years old. You know what I mean? And I don't think a lot of people really feel that way. Could say that, but I truly do.
There's a lot of different genres, and I think we're just hitting on the hardcore, like heavier type music genre here.
Right.
But some people watching in different genres of music might not understand the interactiveness of heavy music.
That's true.
As Jack's saying, being on the other side, I'm here singing. You go to a bar, or you go to a place, and the band plays, and the people sit and listen.
Right.
That's not what we. So like, just to get that, that's not what occurs. The microphones in people's faces, people are screaming. You're like, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to certain places.
I encourage people to sing along. That's my whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I like when people dance. I like, but if people are singing along, that means they truly like the band.
Yeah.
And that lyrics mean something to them. So I mean, I remember the first time we went to Europe, we were spoiled a little bit because we were on a little bit more festivals, so you get a lot of people singing along. But we would go to like random places, and over there they would sort of watch more, and we weren't used to that, not having the reaction.
Oh, right.
But in certain places, they would watch the bands, and they would come up to you and say, "Oh, I love that so much," but it was almost like they didn't react to the music, so you thought, "Oh, that was a bad show." But to them, they would come up, buy a CD, buy a bunch of, "Oh, that was my favorite show," and almost feel like saying to them, "Well, you didn't show it." But it was, they weren't used to that. They're not used to jumping all over each other and singing along, so you had to learn to appreciate, well, they liked it. They said if we didn't like it, we would have left the room. Europeans are honest.
That's a hard thing to explain, because so as he's doing it, in Holland, they'll sit and they'll watch you intently. When the first note hits, everybody might be outside, they come into the room, and everybody stays in the room from the first note to the last note. Then they take a break, unlike the US, where they might come in for the hit song.
Right.
They watch you from start to back, or front to back. But at Holland, they'll watch it. Germany, they'll dance. Poland, they'll dance. But they're very honest with you, too. hey, you guys played much better the last time you were here. Like you'll get that at a show.
Or they'll say, oh, I like this way better than last time you played, and you're like, were we that bad, But hey, I'd rather be brutally honest,
Sure.
And they tell with the language barrier, they're speaking in English, and they're going to be brutally honest.
Yeah.
The last time you were somewhere.
And you might have just, and it might have been not that great because you were traveling 20 hours in a small little 6-seater van to, from France to down to the bottom of Spain. And you're like, oh my God. And you get there, it's like, all right, now it's time to get on.
And it might be the 14th show after you just drove 11 hours. But
so
there's no excuse, I always say. You want to play 100%. That person might be waiting to see that you're banned for.
Yeah.
And they spent their money to see him.
You got on a ferry from Calais. You snuck into the showers that you weren't allowed to use. I dropped my socks in a bucket and they're wet now. But we got to play in London.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
He had one pair of clean socks left, and he's like, "Yo, I can't wait to put these socks on." Where the showers are separated, but there's like the wall there, and I hear him go, "Oh shit!" I'm like, "What happened?" He's like, "I dropped my socks," and he goes, "Of course they didn't land in the shower. There was a dirty bucket of water."
There's a mop bucket in the corner. Throw right in the dirty mop
I'm like,
bucket.
"No, you gotta be." And he's like, "I don't
have any more clothes."
I don't have any more socks."
Because you just throw the dirty clothes in the bag and just take it.
Sure.
Keep going.
They stand up.
Yeah,
The bag stands up on its own.
Even the pits here in America have evolved because it used to be kind of push pits and circle pits and things like that, and now like the hardcore dancing thing has really taken off.
Yeah.
I personally never understood it. I didn't really get it, but that's kind of where I think when people think of a pit now, that's what they picture is these guys like swinging their arms around, and doing karate kicks and all this
you'll
kind
see
of shit.
there's different. If you look at the different types of music, you'll have the punk. You'll have different types. You can see the different types of pits. You'll watch Metallica. You'll see that it's like the running around or the banging into each other with the shoulders and stuff like that. Where if you go to like a punk band, maybe it's a little harder. But then different type of music. Like when you're in the hardcore shows, you're right. Like there's the different style of dance, and there's a lot of hands swinging and feet flying and people cartwheeling and all kinds of stuff that's going on.
But truly, for the most part, everybody's there to have a good time, and nobody wants to hurt anybody.
Sure.
You're always going to get your occasional asshole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's going to just be like out to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
They're not there for the right reason. We always say that, but
they'll usually get if there's escorted out or
or somebody will say yo, you know what I mean?
But you might see the most violent dancing going on, and somebody will bam, and somebody get, oh man, I'm sorry, and like I didn't, and there's always I didn't mean it, we're dancing around, and you got to expect it if you're standing on the edge of it. Here comes the foot. You got to watch. So, and it's nobody's fault if you get hit. It's just part of the game.
But I said most of the time, if the person's doing it the right way, they're trying not to hit anybody. If they do, so my bad. But you know what I mean. Half the time they'll hug it out or pick them up, and it's done and over with.
Yeah.
But in everything, you're gonna get your person that's there for the wrong reason. You just hope there's less and less of them through time. I always say.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever gotten any injuries or scars or anything like that from all those years of being maybe too close or being in the middle of the pit?
I get it from singing a lot. Like I caught they'll hit the microphone and chip my teeth. Or Rusty hits me with the tuner.
Yeah.
I'm bleeding in the middle of Louisiana and I'm bleeding all over. Or we were in London. And a kid had a metal ring on and caught me, but it makes for great pictures.
I was gonna say it's gonna look cool.
I actually have a picture like that Cindy Fry gave me from she's a pretty well-known photographer from Europe, and I have a big picture in my room for her, and they made a calendar out of it. I made a calendar because the picture is so cool. You know what I mean? At the time, maybe I wasn't, but you just keep going. Like your adrenaline's pumping. But I said that's what makes for the best pictures.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that open myself up on purpose. If you see me bleeding on stage, it's usually because somebody hit me.
Yeah.
That's another interesting club. So it was the 12 Bar in London.
Yeah.
The stage is tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all standing on the stage. The band can't move on the stage. It has a balcony up above it.
Yeah, a lot of people are in the balcony above, and then the people are dancing. But of course, I like to get on the floor and let people sing along. So I always usually catch one or.
Yeah.
But I said it made for good pictures.
Yeah, it was a very, very small stage, and we're basically, if you looked at the stage, there was just enough room for the drummer to be off the side, and everybody else was standing in a line. Like it was
Yeah, that was
small.
one of the smaller like stages, definitely.
Yeah.
But the show was awesome.
Yeah, it feels good. Another one of those interesting spots.
So your latest release was Through Cold Eyes in 2013.
Yeah.
Are you guys? Do you have plans to release anything else? Are you working on anything new? Do you have some stuff sitting around ready to go, or?
We always make the joke that we have 6 songs forever, and then every time we go back to them, we always switch it up just a little bit.
Okay.
And I really do think it's because we have 50 songs already, and we play, and we like to play live, and then when we have to practice to play live. And then when we get together, we practice one time with those songs, and we're like, well, let's run over to set because we're gonna have this show coming up. But yes, the answer is we'd really like to do some songs, and we're promising ourselves that we're gonna get them done. You know what I mean? Because we want to definitely release something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're talking about getting some stuff getting together for the summer and getting it out after that.
Okay.
Yeah. So looking for something this year.
What would you maybe consider? Looking back on almost 30 years at this point as a band, what would you consider maybe your biggest accomplishments or the things that you're most proud of that you guys did? I mean, you guys got a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Steamtown Music Awards.
Yeah,
That was pretty damn cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that was like I said, it's being appreciated, I guess. I mean, longevity. I mean, and being active during it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't just say we came back for a reunion. We always took pride in playing a couple times, even at our lowest, a couple times a year, just to make sure we're out and, playing with younger bands too. I think we always take pride in playing with younger bands. We don't want to just play with we don't want to just get on a bigger show with a bigger band, or we always want to go out and play with young bands. We want to be part of the scene.
And hold your own.
Yeah, and hold our own. We like to see where the scene has come, and there's so many good young bands. I mean, now they record and they do everything themselves, and they push their music, and it's nice to be appreciated from them, but to get on a show with them. You know what I mean? To play, I like playing with them as much as they like playing with us. They're like, oh, it's an honor to play. Like we appreciate playing with you guys. You have a nice young crowd. We get some younger faces into it. You know what I mean? And then the next show you have 20 new people at the show. So I like to always say just keep the scene growing.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
I mean, for me, accomplishments like the shows that we've gotten to play. I know you mentioned in the write up, this is hardcore show, the fests that are down in Philly.
Yeah.
A lot of the bigger fests around the area. Getting to play those with a lot of bands. I mean, that's one of the bigger fests in this area and kind of in the country, really.
Yeah. This is hardcore is huge.
It's huge. A lot of big, huge bands on there. So. Getting to play that the amount of times that we've gotten to play it, so that's really cool, as well as always just getting to play new spots. Like, hey, I've heard your band, come on up and play here. Like, oh wow, like okay, cool. Getting, like we mentioned the Cave before, like getting to go up there in Maine. Like she just calls us, come up. Like, all right, head up there, getting to go travel to Canada, play up there in a couple spots. Yeah, we got a show coming
up in Canada, June 21st. Like, you get to go to Canada with your best friends.
Yeah.
People want to see you in Canada with your best friends. Or they'll fly you to Europe to play a festival in Europe, or you'll go play a short 10-day run in Europe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just to get that and to play at the Underworld in London, like places where the most famous bands. I think one of our main accomplishments for me was like playing CBGBs.
I was just gonna say.
Like we got to play CBGBs a couple times, like you know what I mean? And at the time we had our little bus, we brought our own show and we rocked the place, everybody's like, oh, that was awesome. But there's people to this day that we know from the Wetlands, CBGBs, Castle Heights, you know what I mean? All the places, like just to go to New York and play like famous places like that, or go to England, or, you know what I mean? Just to play places where not many people get to even see them, you actually get them. play a show there.
And people know who you are,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
to think, people around here, I think, take for granted that these bands have, like yourselves, have been around for so long, and that there's people overseas who would kill to see you guys
Yeah.
or any of those other bands, So,
And there's so many like good bands from around here.
right.
Like, you have like your Cold World and then your Title Fight, like bands like that. And, like that came up and like people, they headline festivals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
like you said, people are like crazy to see them, and they're our friends our entire lives. Like, it's like,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's,
That's so cool.
it's just, but I said, that's the one thing about the 570 scene. Like, there's a bond here. And I always said, I hope the younger kids, they seem to have that same outlook on it. Like, they all seem to have a lot of friends that they're doing it with their friends and their friends' bands,
I think any of those, every album is an achievement. You get in and you get the thing done. You put it out. I mean, that's a whole process in and of itself, getting it recorded and getting it finished.
Right.
Any of the trips, any of the tours are all accomplishments. I mean, each one of those, we haven't been on anything that we lost money or anything like
No.
that. So, I mean,
No.
West Coast, the East Coast, down south, we did Puerto Rico, which, that was a great experience as well.
Yeah.
But any of those trips that were set up and, played to completion, or I think are success.
You'll see a lot of people and they'll say all the places that you've been. And it always feels to me like I could say I was here, and not only in the United States, in other countries. Like, I'm just like, that's an accomplishment. You know what I mean? I never thought maybe there's some people that don't even leave the valley. Leave the state,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and we're going with our friends, and some people think you're crazy. Like, yeah, we're going to drive here, and we're going to drive 10 hours, and then we're going to drive 8 hours here. And
How long do you go there? It takes 10 hours to get there. How long is your show? Well, there's 5 other bands. We got a 40-minute set. What? What? You're driving how long for 40 minutes? It's like, but we're getting to see our friends. There's a lot of people there. It's going to be a good time.
we're going to book
Right.
2 shows there and 1
Yeah.
show back. You know what I mean? Like,
You guys are nuts.
Yeah.
Okay.
And getting to those places and getting back. We played Canada with us, Wisdom and Chains, Twitching Tongues.
Yeah.
I mean, who else was on that? Born Low.
Yeah,
We went up
yeah.
to Canada for a few dates a couple years ago. Now we're coming back. I mean, they're bringing us back.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you guys are playing Canada coming up. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's on the 21st. So we got and again, it's from, contacts that we have from bands that we know. I mean, that's usually how a lot of it goes. I mean, you meet the band, get friends, and hey, we have a venue, want to come play? Like, okay, cool. Same thing with, people always ask, how'd you get over to Europe? Well, we know the bands that are over there, and we're friends with them, and they say, hey, you want to come over here? We have a couple friends that actually run a booking company over there that put on a huge fest over there. But it's Sound Revolution, right?
Yep.
Is that what the name of it?
Yeah, Sound Revolution. Yep.
They put
Stronger
on.
bookings.
Yeah, he puts on that every year, and it's
Biggest indoor
it's
festival.
massive.
Biggest indoor festival in Europe.
Revolution Calling now.
Yeah, Revolution Calling,
They
yeah.
named it. They had to rename it. So Revolution Calling, but they put that on every year. It's massive.
Yep.
And he does it. He's a singer for his own band, No Turning Back, and they're from Holland. So they're on it every year, and every year they bring over tons of bands
From all over the world.
Yeah. So we got to play that once or twice so far. So hopefully we'll get over there again. But yeah, that was an accomplishment too, because that was one of the biggest fests that they got over there. So that was really cool. But to your point about playing CBGBs, I mean, to me that's, you're like, wow. I mean, imagine how many how many bands stepped on that stage, and you're like, wow, we played the same spot that these major bands from all aspects.
And the fact that it's not there anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like
that's
nobody
it.
can do
Nobody
that.
can do it again. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's an accomplishment for me. It is like I actually was there and actually played that stage, and it's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Not many, like you said, not many people around today can say that. So it's cool.
the genre of hardcore music has changed a lot over the years too, and now you have, as we were saying before, these kind of subcategories, beatdown, etc., that sort of thing, and then you have post-hardcore, which is kind of that's its own thing in and of itself, which is one of those kind of really wide-ranging sort of labels that I'm not sure I fully get, because people will be like, oh, I'm post-hardcore, and I'm like, but you don't sound anything like this. Well, okay. So what is your take on that sound, and and the expansion of that, and the different ways that people view hardcore now and are making hardcore now versus how they did 20, 30 years ago?
See, my whole thing about it is, I see a lot of the younger bands now that are more into the youth crew movement, the fast paced.
Yes.
You know what I mean? More like that. So the post hardcore to me was always, it was like older, older hardcore. Like, you know what I mean? Like almost like I don't understand it myself, and I'm in hardcore, because if you're a hardcore band, you're a hardcore band.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't understand. Like it's not a competition or whatever to say, well, I've been around, I did this. Like post, it's almost saying that was yesterday. But I'm not trying to make it as negative.
Yeah.
It's just like, but you still want to play, then you play.
Yeah.
Or you say I played hardcore in the past. I mean, I don't know.
What does that mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I truly don't understand, and I mean that. Like, it's not a diss towards it, but I don't like when somebody says that to me. I'm just like, well.
Yeah, a lot of it to me sounds more like alternative, but we want to do some metal parts, or we want to do a little hardcore part in a song.
Yeah.
But that's not the whole song.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they're kind of viewing it, I guess. But yeah, you could kind of take that so many different ways.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even...
It's just music to me, like, you know what I mean? Like...
Yeah, that's kind of how I have to look at it. It's like, just go see the band live.
Yeah, like, I don't even pay attention to really, like, the genres. It's just like, I'm just going to see a show, and there's, this band on the band sounds like that band. Like, I'm not really saying that band's a youth group band, or that band sounds like, oh, they sound like Grill Biscuits, or they sound, they're quick, they're fast. Like that's their style. That style of.
But I don't. To me, I always say hardcore. To me, is more of your belief and your push than it is even about the style of music you're playing. It's the way you carry your band, or you want to put it out there, you want to be a little more DIY, you want to care more about your fans, more about the people at the shows, you want to keep it a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, that to me is more the hardcore part about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually about a sound. To me, there's no such thing as a hardcore sound.
Yeah.
And especially now, there's so many different styles of bands that are hardcore bands, but that doesn't mean that they sound like a hardcore band sometimes.
Right.
It's just they grew up in the hardcore scene, and they're playing different styles of music that get lumped into hardcore sometimes.
Sure.
But that's their belief, and that's the direction they kind of want to make it to.
Right.
They like the energy. I always say hardcore to me sometimes is energy.
That's what, there's also that you get a lot of the bands who have been doing it for a long time that kind of poo-poo anything else that's coming along. Well, that's not I'm this genre, that's not this genre, that sort of thing. But you guys don't really ever give that impression. It feels like you're really open-minded to a lot of different sounds, because I think that's kind of how the Pennsylvania hardcore scene always was, really, in a way, because there were so many different sounds coming up that...
In my opinion,
that diversity now is.
In my opinion, if you keep doing that, hardcore's dead. In your eyes, because there's new bands. Like, if you're going to keep on crapping on a new band, there's new bands that are better than any other band. It's just they weren't around back then. But they might be doing something totally different. Look at Turnstile.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Turnstile hit the next level of being, big,
recognized.
But if you know those guys, like I know those, they're hardcore guys. Well, girl now too, but but they're hardcore people. They're everything about them. They're like, oh, that's not exactly hard. I'm like, but it's hardcore because that's the way they present it.
Yeah.
They present that energy and that fun. TLC, like, take care of one another. Like that's what hardcore was to me. It wasn't exactly the sound. It was the aura, the energy, the message, the take that you get from it. Like I always say, if you go to a hardcore show, I want people to take something positive from it.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody does, but that's to me. I don't ever crap on younger bands. Like I said, I enjoy meeting a younger band as much as they enjoy meeting me. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, wow, these kids are killing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was me. It just was a long time ago now.
And if somebody was a snob to you, maybe you wouldn't have been as much of a fan. You know, like
Exactly.
if people treat you well, then you feel like, okay, yeah, I'm a part of something.
Yep.
I want to continue this. I want to be a part
And that's
of it.
what Jack touched on earlier. That's what made us want to play, because these bands that were making good music that we enjoyed were nice to us.
Yeah.
They actually became our friends. Like they were like, they didn't have to be nice to a 19-year-old kid. They're from the city, you're from here, or whatever.
Yeah.
Not, you know, they didn't have to be nice. They were nice because they appreciated you, liked their music, and then you kind of had a bond and made a relationship out of it, a friendship. And like I said, I talk to these people to this day. You know what I mean? From all kind of music, all kinds of bands. You know, it's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, from just like we talked about being on the other side of the mic, like what you appreciated is being that fan. Like I liked and I loved when I was able to relate to the band, and they were able to speak to me, and I was able to talk to them, you know. And being on the other side of that, Mike, when you're the fan of like, oh man, I tried to go talk to this guy and he just left him, or he hung out in the van and he never came in, or like, you know, I tried to talk to him and he was like, yeah, kid, and he left. And it's like, okay, that kind of sours your taste to the band. It's like, I love this band and this is how they treated me, you know, like,
Right.
So, you know,
We know it goes a long way. It planted a seed.
Yes.
And everybody, and that seed turned into other.
You don't know
offshoots
how
and
many
bands.
people
Yeah.
come up to us and want to buy stuff off us, and we're sitting at the merch stand. It's like, oh, you guys are selling your own merchandise? We're like,
Man.
that's always what we did. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we might have a friend help us sometimes or something, and you know, somebody's wife is watching while we're playing. But
Yeah.
that's how you meet people at the show. You know what I mean? We're at the show just like you're at the show. You know, sometimes I'm excited to play with bands that I like. I'm just like, wow, I get to see these bands. I get to play, and I get to enjoy the bands that we're playing with.
Yeah.
Right. I think people outside of local scenes in general don't really seem to understand that that's like a thing, because now we live in the age of this kind of these paid meet and greets,
Oh yeah.
and here sit in your assigned seat and don't get up and don't move and don't don't God forbid you maybe move your to the seat over to get a better view, even though it's empty, and
Yeah.
somebody's going to come down and scold you. No. Everybody has to be, and it just feels so corporatized.
Yeah.
A lot.
Did you pay $25 for that picture, or did your husband pay?
Right.
Oh, you're both getting in the picture. That's $50.
Yes,
Nah,
Yeah.
yes,
come on.
like that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And the crazy fees that are added on to everything and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's just it's sad that that's what a lot of people think the concert experience is.
Yeah, and they really don't know another side of it. Like, you know, wow, I can really go to this show and stand here in the midst of 50 other people, and if I want to, I could walk right up to the front and I could have some fun, and I could
enjoy
I could
yourself.
stand right next to the guy, and
People
you know,
are making sure you're in a certain section.
yeah, like you can go wherever you want. It's free reign at the shows. You can have as much fun as you want. You don't have to worry about that stuff. Like, oh, don't go over there.
Yeah,
you know, or
and you can have that personal experience.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
The
so-
no barrier is huge.
Oh, right.
and you know, that's one thing where, you know, we actually, if we walk into a club and there's a barrier, the first thing I'm like, you know, like, oh man, do we have to have that? Like, and sometimes they have to have it there for legal reasons where they have to have bouncers, but it kind of ruins the experience, you know. And even for us, it's like we're playing up there, like, oh man, you know, he'll jump down and he'll be next to the barrier, still singing with the people on the other side of the barrier, but you know, the bouncers are looking at him like, what are you doing? You know, and it's like, this is the whole point, you know. Everybody loves it.
The energy that we talked about for half the show now.
Yeah. So it's definitely something, like, to your point, like, you know, a lot of people don't.
I always say,
understand.
I always hope, I wish everybody got to experience a good hardcore show. You know what I mean? Like something that's really, you know, really just for the people.
Right.
There was no egos there. There's no, like you said, you didn't have to pay for a meet and greet.
Yeah.
You didn't have to pay $75 to get in the show.
And I get it, bands got to make money and
Oh, yeah,
stuff. I
I'm not-
understand it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you know, at the same time, it just it takes away
Yeah.
from the whole thing.
Yeah.
In our genre, definitely.
Yeah.
But and like I said, don't get me wrong. I understand that bands do have to get paid. I mean, I get it when they're getting popular and they're selling out places. Hey, they
Right.
deserve the money as much as anybody
You're not
else.
making money on the albums anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah.
that
The
kind of
music's
shit.
definitely that part of the music's definitely being given away for free practically. So I understand that's the way they have to make money.
Yeah, that's another thing today is like, we've had CDs and tapes and records, and now a lot of it is, well, we did our record and it's out on, for download,
Yeah.
So you're making money off a lot of your money off merch, being just to cover your gas, and,
T-shirts and whatever else you want to sell.
yeah, to reprint your T-shirts and to cover expenses and things like that is really merch
Yeah.
at this point, So, yeah, but still, I mean, yeah, we're not sitting here. Hey, you want to talk to me? It's $20. That ain't happening. So, yeah.
Well, I one of the things I wanted to touch on is this how the scene has changed over time. When you think of kind of growing up in its heyday, how would you compare that to now? There's obviously maybe a lack of venues these days. I think is kind of the number one thing that I hear
Around
from
here,
most bands, that when you go from an era where there were so many of these great venues that we've mentioned to like they're all gone and there's not really a lot of replacements.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say it this way, but I think everybody's afraid to get sued now too. You're afraid
Yes.
to throw a show in a little place, and
Right.
because some of the people aren't used to it like we were. Like that was the main thing. You would never go against the scene, and
Yeah.
because you kind of were taken away from the scene if you sued somebody.
Yeah.
But now, God, somebody breaks their finger and their first words out are, "I'm getting a lawyer. I need to get this
Yeah.
fixed."
Right.
And it's like, well, you kind of knew the risk. You know what I mean?
Going in.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Buy the ticket, take the ride.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think too maybe social media plays into that too. Like you could have a show that's kind of maybe a little on the down low, everybody knows, that sort of thing. Now it's like, well, it's posted all over social media. Everybody had their phones out, so all of the evidence is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So and
So it's
so
like,
twisted their ankle. They thought it was twisted, but it's broken. Now I didn't want to.
Yeah, right.
Now they're gonna sue the band that was playing instead of.
Right.
It's like, come on, man. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I don't ever want anybody to get hurt, but I mean, stuff happens.
Right.
yeah. But I mean, there definitely is like a lack of venues. I mean, some of the shows around here, like it might just be like a pop-up show here and there.
Yeah.
Will there be a venue to play? I mean, the closest legit venue that we have is probably Reverb, right?
Yeah.
That's in Reading. So that's like a legit, like constant venue that keeps on going.
Yeah. They have a lot of different music, but they, one of the owners is actually from a hardcore band, so he knows what they'll still bring a lot of good hardcore shows in, and they'll do it the right way.
Yeah.
They know them shows, they don't have a barrier, even though I have a barrier for other shows.
Yeah.
But they kind of know what they got. They know that they don't have to worry about that stuff. You have a little less security because, believe it or not, hardcore is a little safer in that sense. You know what I mean? Because you police yourself.
Right. People, you fall down, people pick you up.
Yeah.
Exactly. And nobody wants to ruin the show for the next show.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
They're like just happy that somebody's having a venue that's doing hardcore shows,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there a lot of bands in kind of the hardcore punk scene right now in terms of that you see kind of coming up now?
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of local bands. We have two on the show that we're playing.
Yep.
Full Game and I think Cheated, right? They're newer bands that are coming out.
Yep.
One Step Closer. They're a bigger band.
Yeah. We had them on the show before their release party. That they did at, in
Yeah, they're
Keystone.
doing big things, man. And then our guitar player that's not here, he has a band Choice to Make. And like I said, that Whoop Spare scene really has like a lot of young bands.
Yeah.
They have some
Peace Corps.
Corps. Yeah, they have, but they really keep it going. They're pushing out a lot of music, and they're known a lot of places.
Yeah.
And like I said, they'll have pop-up shows, and there'll be a couple hundred people there. I mean, they do it well,
Yeah.
But like I said, it's hard to find that one solid venue.
Yeah.
And like I said, sometimes it'll get get talked about too much sometimes. There'll be too many people there, and then it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I have a friend who's doing house shows now, and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Really hope that people are very cool about that.
Yeah.
The neighbors are cool about it. You
Yeah.
know, like, oh man.
Yeah, but I mean, for that, I mean, you like it. I mean, he's doing it, and you're like, man, this is cool, and then all of a sudden, oh, you know, it's sort of the same thing. You got something bubbling for a bit, and then that's gone. So then you move on to Carl Hall was in Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah,
We thought that was going, and that was a good club, and all of a sudden it shut down, and we're like, here we go.
Yep.
So that was like almost a legit club for a while in Wilkes-Barre, and it shut down.
It all depends on the setup. They had a good setup.
Yeah.
It looked
Right.
like
It was a real club.
Felt like a club. It had a good sound system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scranton hasn't really had one in quite a while.
In a bit, yeah.
The Ritz is opening up. And that kind of reminded. There was a place that we played at the Chance in Poughkeepsie.
Yeah.
Which actually just closed, and it had a real similar setup to the Ritz.
Had a little bit of a bigger floor, though. That's the only problem with the Ritz here, as far as like for our type of music.
Right.
There's really no place to truly dance. That's the only thing I would worry about. You know what I mean?
I worry about they have those kind of almost like a
barriers.
steps, yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel
Somebody
like
falling down.
people are going to be jumping, like leaping off of the, like, there's no question in my mind.
I actually wasn't there.
that
My
that's
wife
gonna be
actually went.
happening.
She said that's what she said.
Yeah.
She said it was nice for a concert, but I would worry about you guys playing there for people falling or jumping or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because there's like these kind of barriers that come up like here in each step. It's like this weird. It's tiered. Is how you would put it. And I definitely could see people standing on those and then leaping off.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times I saw people jump off the balcony at the staircase or tanks
Yeah.
and fall the wrong way.
Yeah.
And as you get older, you worry about it more too. Like, oh, are they all right? Yeah. When you were younger, you never thought about, oh, that guy's really hurt.
Right. Everybody just kind of kept going.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Pick him up, he'll be fine. Send him over in the corner, give him a water.
Yeah.
Now you're like, oh no, that guy's gonna miss some work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the scene, like I said, as far as the bands and stuff, I really think it's strong. It's just more of a regular place to play.
Yeah. There's bands here. There's bands playing. They're just playing either outside of the area or a quick pop-up show or in the area.
Yeah.
I just wish there was a hometown club that would be dedicated.
And they did do it at that because we played there too. Which it was nice that the place with in Kingston.
What was that?
The place we played last time in Kingston. The place with they rent out we used to be by Jitty Joe's and stuff. Not Jitty Joe's, but
I don't know.
you know what I'm talking about. Where you were just there at the last show, across from that burger spot.
I'm drawing a blank, Carl.
All right.
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, Dave's Boardroom. Doug's Boardroom.
Doug's Boardroom.
Yeah, Doug's Boardroom. You said the burger spot, and I'm like, oh, that's Market Street Burger.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think that's what you were talking. Yeah.
But
I'm not thinking the name of that because it's not a real. But that's another thing. They let them rent them out and do some shows there, and the guy's super cool, and the people that rent it out are like that do the shows. It's super cool, but it's not a regular all the time thing.
Right.
So that's why I had trouble thinking of the name.
Yeah, it's not a dedicated
Or if it was
club.
a regular dedicated place, you know the name.
And that stuff might be. It might help the scene to stay stronger because
Well,
you're
it does.
constantly finding need a place to play, but having that home base.
Yeah.
Gives
Doug's
you a
Boardroom,
place to
that
be,
was-
gives you a place to meet, gives you a place to.
But they had some really good shows there. That's what
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
saying. Like,
Yeah.
but if that was a regular venue,
Yeah.
instead of just a pop-up show, I call it,
Yeah.
I think it would really, because I mean, the people that come to them shows, it's packed. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, once
And
they
they're-
become consistent, the crowd builds.
Yeah, and we had the other side that was in Wilkes-Barre for a while. That was where Downpour is now. So that was
I thought that was a good setup.
that was a good club for a while, and that was an actual venue, and then that closed too. And it's just there's a lot of that. They're open for a while and it closed, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, we did our 20-year show at the other side. That was
yeah,
sold out. I mean, it was good. Mm-hmm. And the guy that he had the little restaurant in the front and the back. The stage part was nice, and he was good about everything. Like he liked the hardcore shows, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's half the battle. But they had the brick walls so nothing could get broken.
yeah,
The only thing you could break if you wanted to was your hand on that wall.
Yeah.
You know, that's a plus. I always say at our shows, I like what they said on for the Neil Husvar show coming up, and they said, you know, don't break anything because it comes out of the proceeds for what we're really there for.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That makes so much sense.
So respect the venue and everything, and I think that's going to be a great time, man. I really do. I wish it was for a different occasion, but they really put it together, and I think it's gonna, you know, I think we're gonna see a lot of people.
Yeah.
I hope, you know, a lot of older people, a lot of, you know, in Full's game, and then we'll bring some younger guys, and you know, we'll kind of all get together and have a
That's gonna be an opportunity
memorable day.
for young kids.
Oh
to
yeah,
see
yeah.
Some
Right.
bands that they would never have had a chance to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had people hit us up even about like, oh, I never really got to experience, you know, and you don't realize it. We don't play, or is a pop-up show now sometimes, so they don't know it's coming to the area. Where
Right.
this one's kind of advertised as a show,
Yeah.
which is nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're doing a lot on the Facebook page, a lot of advertisements, a lot of good stuff. I'm like, wow,
Like
what
this.
they're doing here, like this is cool. You know, additions that they're putting on a show. They might have food trucks outside. They might have other, you know, things going on with the show that they're putting together. So I thought that was really cool. They're doing a lot
Yeah.
of
I
good
think
work
there's
there.
basket raffles and stuff too, which is great.
Yeah.
Raise some extra money.
But things like this really help too, you know, get the word out to other, like you said, maybe not people that aren't regulars at hardcore shows.
Right.
Oh, I always wanted to check these guys out. Let me go check it out.
Yeah,
You know, and
yeah.
maybe it'll be the next coming of hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know who's going to be inspired by
exactly.
these performances.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, older people. I had a Scranton fireman ask me about the one of the raffles, the zine. They're raffling off a zine, like a complete set of zines, and he was really interested in that.
Nice.
You know, because it was something from, again, back in the 90s. Like, I mean, these are some guys that are a little bit older.
Yeah.
You know, they used to do it, and maybe they haven't done it in a while. I think some of those people are going to come out, and I think it's going to be a good opportunity for some of the younger kids to see.
I know people that
these
are bringing their kids. People that used to come to the shows are bringing their kids, and they're like, "Yeah, well, they listen. They always listen to it with us." Then they brought their kids to some. We played down there, Reverb and stuff, and we just played down in Altoona, and they brought their kids, and they're like, "Our kids love it. Like they can't wait till the next show."
Yeah.
So people that were your friends and your fans, their kids now are liking, liking the music, and it's like, well, that's the ultimate goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's gotta feel like a trip back in time to be able to play with this lineup. You know, how does it feel for you guys to be doing this again?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like looking at Barrel Ground. Like I remember playing. We played shows with them in the past.
Yeah.
But I remember, going to shows and listening to some of their songs and like some of my, favorite songs I like from them. So dancing, singing, like, oh, you can't wait. So it's like we obviously haven't seen them in years.
I remember being at Options last show at the Staircase. You know what I mean? Like now here we are playing with them again.
Yeah.
I mean, we were always friends. We always kept a good friendship, but they never played. Now they're playing. I mean, I never thought they would play again. I think it's awesome that, like I said, I wish it was for a better reason, for a mutual friend, but for them to come back and play, side over. You know what I mean? Like these are people that are good people that have a lot to do with the scene, and now they get to play again and enjoy it. You know what I mean? But they get to show the younger generation, like, hey, we've been doing this a long time. You know what I mean? Like, we've been rocking out since you before you were born.
Yeah.
They were. That's one of the first bands I've seen. Like that was a local band, was Side Over. So that'll just show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, some of those bands were on my first show.
Yeah.
So
that's what I mean. Yeah.
So
now we're the old guys.
91, I think maybe.
Yeah.
It was like wow.
For me, it was 90. For you, it was 91. And like I said, it's the same way. Like these are the bands that we first seen that were the local bands. That we didn't know them at the time, but then we learned. Like, wow, these guys they have a scene already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, we're a part of it. I never thought that. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys know Neil personally at all?
I know him really well. I mean, sadly did. We became friends. He was piercing and stuff, and at the time, I ended up doing security at a club that he had, at a strip club of all places. I ended up doing security, and then I was working with him for a while there, and you know, we knew each other through the music already. I knew him from going to CC's, like, you know, being in other bands.
Sure.
But then we became better friends, and then eventually we ended up being partners in the club, and then we would hang out all the time. So yeah, he was a good guy, and like I said, but then he ended up moving out to California, and then like I said, but we still kept in touch. I talked to him about a week and a half before he passed, and I still can't believe I'm in shock.
Yeah, I think pretty much everybody I knew that knew him had
Yeah.
said the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But once he was your friend, he was your friend for, you know what I mean? He was one of those guys that would do pretty much anything for anybody. You know, and he still always loved the music. He would still travel to New York. He would go to shows out in Cali, you know what I mean? But I said when he would come in, he would, you know, hit me up. We'd grab a bite to eat and stuff, you know, But I became friends with his family too, because like I said, we were together a lot from the club. So it's still a shock, kind of, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to do this for him. Like I said, I wish it was for a different reason. I wish this was just a reunion show. But
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
but I know this is what he would have wanted. You know what I mean? He would have definitely loved a good hardcore show in his memory.
Yeah.
So if I go, that's what I want to. So
Especially with the lineup.
yeah,
you
especially
know,
with the
of
lineup.
of
Yeah.
all the bands that
Yeah.
you know he was either a part of or played, you know,
Yeah.
when he was in the bands that played, you know. So
Yeah.
So I mean, as far as me knowing Neil, like I just knew him through the music scene. I didn't have a close personal relationship like Carl did, but you know, see Neil at a show, hey, what's up? You know, talking, seeing what's going on. So stuff like that. So that's in, you know, when you hear the news, you're like, what? You know, like you couldn't believe it, you know, because you might have just messaged you on Facebook about something like, you know, 2 weeks before, you know, but it was like, geez. Like,
It's
really?
sort of a coincidence because he was supposed to come in for what do they call it now? The one in New York, Super Bowl hardcore. He was supposed to come in on the 24th, and now like, you know, he was supposed to come in and he's like, oh, you know, we should meet up. I'll catch a bite to eat, and then we ended up doing this on the 25th. So it's sort of like, you know what I mean? Like he was supposed to be home anyway.
Right.
You know, came home in a different way, but you know, he's still with us. Like I said, we're gonna rock out in his memory, put it that way. You know what I mean? And I know I think the turnout's gonna be great because I think it's gonna show what he really meant to a lot of people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like even though he was out in California for a while, his personality shined through through the memories. People have memories from probably 1985 to, you know what I mean, to modern day, you know?
Right.
Like I said, mine was more in the late 90s, early 2000s, where a lot of people have early 90s since they were kids, you know what I mean? I mean, he was in a couple of the bands, you know what I mean? Like, I know how it is with my guys in a band, you're together all the time, you know? I think that's the reason we still play in a band is because we get to see each other when we play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As you get older, you're like, let's practice and go play a show.
Yeah.
So we can see each other.
That's your hanging out.
Yeah, yeah, that's our hanging out now. Yeah.
Exactly.
We talk in the van and hang out. You know what I mean?
I didn't know him as personally as these guys. I'm a little bit younger, but my memory of him was a piercer at Mark's.
Right.
And I kind of like, as this conversation is going, it's kind of coming full circle because it wasn't a memory that I had consistently, but he had a Sick of It All poster. And I don't even remember where Mark's was located at the time, but I remember seeing that being younger and checking some of that music out because of what I saw on the wall at his place.
Yeah, one of my best friends had all her piercings done by him, so that's how she knew him. And same thing. She texted me. It was like, "This show, what happened?" Like,
Yeah.
it was just. It's definitely been a shock.
Anybody who met him, honestly, usually he puts an imprint on you. Put it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just from that interaction, she was just like, yeah, he was the coolest guy.
Yeah.
Just so chill and down to earth, and
Yeah.
you know, just the kind of guy that you're immediately friends with.
Yeah.
And I heard you guys canceled a gig to do this as well, or you had something else booked.
Actually,
or moved something around?
we had 2 shows offered to us, whatever, and then Obituary and Terror and them were playing down at Reverb, which is So I was
Yeah.
planning on going that. That's why we were not playing. But I said, I'm like, I got to be there.
You got to do it.
I want to. Not that I even have to do it. I want to do it.
Sure.
And I want to honor his memory, and I know he would do it for me. You know what I mean? And I was supposed to see him this weekend anyway, so it's kind of bittersweet, I guess.
Sure. Should we? I'll wrap up with some. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that, if you haven't put them down in the chat, now's the time to do that. Summer, do you see anything on Instagram? StreamYard will pull in Facebook and YouTube, but not always Instagram. So let's see if there's anything here. Let's see. Nick says, "Strength for a Reason, a great underrated PA band." Let's see.
I got
Let's see. Tyler Barrett. Oh, he must have been talking about something we were talking about earlier. It was Round Top Park in Athens, Pennsylvania.
There you go.
There you go.
Round Top coming around the dial. Oh man, there's somebody from up there that knows.
Yeah, see?
See.
I was going to say, the internet will always know. There will
Yes.
always be somebody in
That was
the
awesome,
comments to
Eddie.
tell you. Let's see. Brad says,
Brad.
CC started my love for hardcore at age 16.
See, yeah, Brad's a good guy, man. That's why I said there's so many people you meet that are just, like I said, it's lifetime friendships built through music.
Yeah. Everyone liked Burial Ground. Yeah, there's also, I should mention these too. Our photographer, Jason Reed Miller, had these really cool postcards made up of some old show flyers. So if yours got thrown away somewhere, or you lost it or something like that, you can get these at the show. I think he's selling for $2-3 or whatever for for the cause. And there's plenty of other stuff. I think a lot of the old T-shirts. I think somebody's making went to Axelrad and got a whole bunch of T-shirts from a lot of the bands that probably haven't had a shirt in 20 years, which is pretty cool. So a lot of cool stuff that's going to be at this show coming up. So make sure that you if you can't make it. I believe there are donation links in the Facebook event page, and there's a Facebook page for it, an Instagram, all that good stuff. And we're pulling out all the stops to make a live stream happen for Sunday as well. So NEPA Scene will be there. We'll be taking photos and stuff too. But there's people across the country who really want to see this show who can't be here for it. So I'm going to ask that they please donate. It's going to be a free stream. Anybody can tune into it. It's just going to be on NEPA Scene's Facebook page or YouTube, all that stuff, just like this show is. But make sure that we'll put donation links in the comments and on the screen and stuff like that. Please definitely, give to the cause and let's raise as much money as we possibly can. But yeah, St. Mary's is a bit of a challenge in terms of streaming. There's apparently no internet there. They're the last place on the planet. Even the Dunkin' Donuts next door has internet, but they do not. And there's these big, thick concrete walls. It's kind of dead in there. It's really hard to get a signal.
Yeah.
So we're gonna absolutely do our best to make a live stream happen for everybody. We'll bring all of our equipment, and hope Ionic Development is doing the sound, so they're gonna help me, and hopefully we'll get that done.
It's awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah. If all else fails, we'll definitely have it all recorded, and we will be able to put it all up for everybody to see later. But we're doing our best to make it happen live so that everybody can see it.
Cool.
I just hope a lot of people come out, and even if it's their first hardcore show or their 1,000th,
Yeah.
I just hope everybody comes out and supports, because I know that's what Neil would want, and I think it's gonna be real cool with all the bands, man. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a great time.
All right, so Hardcore for Husvar featuring Husvar. Husvar. See, I keep wanting to. I have that thing in my brain where it's like I know this is the wrong pronunciation, and this is the correct pronunciation, and then I say the wrong one.
We always say Huz. That's the easy way to go. Husvar.
So hardcore for Husvar, featuring Strength for a Reason, Burial Ground, Options, Side Over, Fool's Game, Soughwutt, and Cheated. In fact, I will put up the flyer on the screen there. Will be held on Sunday, May 25th at St. Mary's Center in Scranton. Doors open at 5 p.m. The first band goes on at 5:30. Tickets are $20 at the door. Proceeds will cover the final expenses for Neil, and 10% will be donated to suicide prevention and support resources. Is there anything else you guys want to mention before we get out of here?
No, I just wanted to...
Comment.
What's that?
I had one Instagram comment.
Oh, okay.
It said Rusty for president of Scranton.
All right. Do you want to announce anything in terms of are you going to be running for president of Scranton?
I won't be. I'd like to thank the citizens of Scranton, the residents of Scranton.
Yes, congratulations.
Nobody really knows, but I ran for Scranton City Council for re-election, and I was re-elected last night. So.
Great job, Rusty. We're proud of you.
Congratulations.
Tom, thank you, man.
Tom.
What's the next what's the next step for you there?
But we're going to be going into the general election in November, and we'll be, being sworn in January, starting a new term on the Scranton City Council.
Cool.
And I do have one thing to say. Always check
Yes.
on your friends. Look out for
Yes.
your friends, man. Mental health, and never be afraid to talk to somebody if you're feeling down. And just let your friends know you love them, because you never know it's going to be the last time that you might not be able to talk to them. So, to all my friends gone, well, I'll miss you all, man. And just remember, check on your friends, man. I can't say it enough. And if you're down, please reach out to somebody. I'd rather listen to you than find out this way,
Absolutely.
I always have an ear.
Yeah. And just quick thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for...
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys coming on. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for all you do for the local scene, you know what I mean?
Thanks.
Really
man.
appreciate it,
10 years doing it independently and still going. So
Awesome, man. That's great. That's what I said. I said it's everything helps. Everything's building for something else,
right.
And local music and the area always needs people to document it and let people see what's going on besides here,
And in the same way that we've seen a lot of the venues disappear, we've seen a lot of the great outlets that there used to be disappear. The print outlets, the media that is still around is a lot of it is a shadow of its former self. You don't see big arts and entertainment sections in the newspapers anymore, and you don't see the alt weeklies and things out, on every corner that you can pick up and find out what's going on in the area. And there's not even really a ton of websites other than listing things, which I think is helpful. I think like these calendars and things like that, you have like Discover NEPA and things, which is great. Like they list things, but they don't really give you the context a lot of times of what you need to know. Like if you're a music fan, it's like you telling me the names of bands doesn't really do much for me. I need to actually understand like who they are and what do they sound like and that sort of stuff. So
it's like giving a flyer and not having the address.
right. Yeah, absolutely.
Sadly, that happens often,
Yeah. So we hope to kind of do as much as we can to spread the word about this stuff and get more butts and seats, so to speak.
Well, I think you're doing great, man. It's awesome.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, so if you guys enjoyed this conversation, make sure that you leave all of the good algorithm things, like, comment, share, all that good stuff to keep it going and let more and more people find out about what's going on in the local scene every week. We'll be here next Wednesday for another NEPA Scene Podcast. And if you're not already following Strength for a Reason on social media and stuff, go do all that as well. We'll see you here next week, and I'll see you this Saturday for the big show at Cayuga Field that we're doing. It's an all-day thing. Pro wrestling, music, comedy. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then, even though I know I personally will be very tired, I will be getting up early to make sure that live stream is happening. And I'll see you Sunday at this show as well. So, thanks again for tuning in, and have a good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you Sunday.